There are stories in the entertainment world that remain whispered about, never fully revealed, yet powerful enough to shake entire fandoms when fragments slip through the cracks. This one begins not with a stage performance, not with a paparazzi shot, not with a scandal, but with a single piece of paper. A letter. A hidden letter that Wang Yibo wrote in a moment of vulnerability, sealed with words that were never meant for the public eye. The existence of this letter came to light under the most unusual circumstances. A staff member who once worked closely with Yibo claimed to have seen it tucked away in the back of a well-worn notebook, folded neatly, almost reverently, as if the words inside were too powerful to be spoken aloud. It was never sent. It was never delivered. But the question that haunts everyone now is, who was it for? Imagine Wang Yibo, the man who commands stages with his icy charisma, who races motorcycles at full throttle, who stares down cameras with an unreadable gaze, sitting alone late at night with pen and paper. No audience. No mask. Just Yibo and his raw thoughts. The idea alone is enough to send a shiver down the spine of fans, who know how rare it is for him to expose his inner world. He has always been a fortress of silence, speaking through action rather than words. So why write a letter at all? The first shocking detail is the timing. This letter was said to have been written in 2020, during the height of both Yibo's rising fame and Xiao Zhan's storm of controversy. It was the year that nearly broke both of them in different ways. For Yibo, it was endless filming schedules, brand obligations, and racing competitions, all while carrying the weight of being one of China's most in-demand idols. For Xiao Zhan, it was a year shadowed by attacks, cancellations, and unbearable pressure. And yet, in the middle of that chaos, Yibo apparently chose to write something deeply personal, something he never dared to send. What could be inside that letter? Those who claim to have caught glimpses describe it as handwritten, the ink slightly smudged in places, as though Yibo had paused, hesitated, maybe even struggled with emotions too heavy to control. The tone, they say, was softer than anything he had ever spoken in public. It wasn't cold. It wasn't detached. It was filled with a warmth and a longing that seemed entirely at odds with the aloof image he carries. One chilling revelation comes from a single line that was allegedly visible when the paper was accidentally half unfolded. "I wish I could say this face to face, but I'm afraid the world would never let us." Those words alone have fueled endless speculation. Who was he talking about? Who was the us he feared the world wouldn't accept? Fans were quick to connect the dots, and many whispers pointed toward one name, Xiao Zhan. The timing matches. The emotional undertone matches. But the story gets even more mind-blowing when you consider what insiders have hinted at. During a late-night filming session for The Untamed years before, Yibo was reportedly seen sitting on the edge of the set, quietly scribbling into a notebook while Xiao Zhan was filming a scene. Some believe it was then that Yibo began pouring his private emotions onto paper, capturing moments he couldn't express out loud. But the 2020 letter, this hidden piece of his heart, wasn't written for a script or a diary. It was a direct message. A confession. And the more you piece together, the clearer it becomes that this was never about casual friendship or routine communication. It was about something deeper. Something forbidden. Something unspoken. Imagine the scene, Yibo alone in his Beijing apartment, city lights flickering outside the window, the hum of silence heavy around him. He sits at his desk, pen in hand, staring at a blank sheet of paper. For someone who has always preferred speed in racing, speed in dance, speed in achieving, this moment would have felt like the opposite. Slow. Unbearably slow. Because emotions don't move fast. They drag. They ache. Insiders suggest the letter was filled with reflections on loyalty and protection. Words like "I can't stand seeing you hurt" and "I wish I could take it all away" were said to appear in his handwriting. That single letter, never sent, was an emotional anchor, a way of saying what he couldn't risk saying aloud. Because once written, once spoken, words could destroy everything. The tragedy of this hidden letter lies not just in its contents, but in its silence. Yibo never sent it. He folded it back up, tucked it away, and locked it behind his usual wall of quiet strength. It became a ghost of a message, a secret confession that lived only between him and the paper it was written on. But here's where the story takes a jaw-dropping twist. The staff member who revealed the existence of the letter swears that Yibo carried that notebook with him everywhere during 2020. On sets. On flights. Even at racing tracks. It was always close to him, as though he feared losing it or maybe feared someone else finding it. Yet, despite the risk, he never destroyed it. Why? Because perhaps some part of him needed it. Needed to know that even if he never spoke the words, they existed. They were real. They were his truth. And now, the question that burns in the minds of fans everywhere: does Xiaozhong know? Did the letter ever reach him secretly? Was there a late-night meeting, away from cameras, where Yibo finally let him read it? Or does the letter still sit somewhere in Yibo's belongings, unread, unknown, untouched by the person it was meant for? The mystery deepens when you consider the way Yibo and Xiaozhong's dynamic has shifted in subtle, almost imperceptible ways since 2020. Their rare public interactions carry a weight, a loaded silence, as though something more lingers beneath the surface. Was it the weight of an unsent letter? Was it the knowledge of feelings that could never be spoken aloud? Fans recall one particular award show moment. Yibo stood just a step behind Xiaozhong, his expression unreadable, but his gaze lingering a fraction longer than expected. To the casual observer, it was nothing. To those who believe in the letter, it was everything. It was a silent echo of words never spoken, a glance heavy with what might have been written but not shared. What makes the story almost unbearable is the what if. What if Yibo had sent that letter? What if he had chosen courage over caution, truth over silence? Would the world have understood? Or would it have torn them apart? In the brutal reality of the industry they live in, where every gesture is dissected, where every word becomes a headline, perhaps Yibo already knew the answer. Perhaps that's why he folded the letter, placed it back into his notebook, and walked away. And yet, the letter still lives. Not in the public domain, not in the media, but in the hushed tones of those who claim to have seen it, in the imaginations of fans who piece together the fragments, and most of all, in the heart of Wang Yibo himself. Because once you write something down, it never truly disappears. The paper holds it. The ink holds it. The memory holds it. The hidden letter is no longer just a story about what Yibo wrote. It's a symbol of everything unsaid in a world that demands silence. It's about the weight of feelings that can't be spoken, the danger of truths that can't be shared, and the heartbreaking beauty of a love or a bond that exists in the shadows. Somewhere, perhaps still tucked into the back of that notebook, or hidden in a drawer in Yibo's apartment, lies a folded piece of paper. A paper that holds the words he could never send, addressed to someone he may never fully reach. And whether or not Xiaozhong or anyone else ever reads it, one thing remains certain: that letter is real. And it holds the kind of truth that could change everything. The story of Wang Yibo's hidden letter reminds us that behind every star, behind every carefully controlled image, there's a human being who feels deeply, who struggles silently, who writes words they may never have the courage to send. And maybe that's what makes this revelation so powerful. Not just what the letter said. Not just who it was for. But the fact that even someone as seemingly untouchable as Wang Yibo once sat in silence, with a pen in his hand, and poured his heart onto paper, knowing it might never see the light of day. The hidden letter remains a mystery. A confession never delivered. A truth locked away. But sometimes, it's the unsent messages, the unspoken words, that hold the most powerful stories of all. When we last uncovered the existence of Wang Yibo's hidden letter, we were left haunted by the mystery, words written but never spoken, feelings captured but never shared. But the story doesn't end there. If anything, it deepens. Because this letter isn't just paper and ink, it's a reflection of a side of Yibo the world was never meant to see. And now, the continuation of that story takes us further into the mind of a man who chose silence over confession. Picture this: the dim glow of a desk lamp in the corner of Yibo's apartment, casting long shadows across a quiet room. He sits hunched over, the city alive outside his window, but his own world reduced to a single sheet of paper. The sound of his pen scratching against the page breaks the silence, halting and hesitant, as though each word costs him something to write. Insiders say the letter wasn't a single burst of emotion written in one sitting. No, it was written over nights, pauses between sentences, words crossed out, rephrased, then left unfinished until he returned again. That alone speaks volumes. It wasn't casual. It wasn't fleeting. It was deliberate. It mattered. And that's why the details people recall from those who glimpsed the letter feel so earth-shattering. One phrase, in particular, allegedly written near the end, has left many stunned. "I don't know if I'll ever find the courage to tell you this, but every time I see you smile, I remember why I keep going." These are not the words of a distant colleague. These are not the words of casual friendship. These are words soaked in devotion, in tenderness that is rare, if not forbidden, in their world. Now imagine Yibo folding that paper carefully, not crumpling, not discarding. No. He preserved it, tucked it into his notebook like a secret flame he couldn't extinguish. He carried it with him everywhere, a silent weight in his bag, as though part of him feared losing it while another part feared what might happen if it was ever found. One scene reported by crew members adds to this intensity. During a late-night filming schedule, Yibo was seen sitting alone on the edge of the set, the notebook open in his lap. His eyes weren't on the script, nor on his phone, but fixed on something inside those pages. A staff member swore they saw him reading, his expression soft, unguarded, before quickly snapping the book shut when someone called his name. Could it have been the letter? Could it have been the only way he allowed himself to feel those words, by reading them in secret, never daring to voice them aloud? The weight of that silence becomes even more dramatic when you realize how different things could have been had he delivered it. Imagine the possibilities: a quiet meeting late at night, Yibo slipping the folded paper into Xiaozhon's hands, eyes refusing to meet, heart pounding in his chest. Imagine Xiaozhon unfolding the paper, his eyes scanning the words, realizing for the first time the depth of what Yibo had never said. That scene alone feels like something out of a film, yet it remains in the realm of what if. Because the letter was never delivered. Instead, Yibo chose silence. But silence doesn't erase the truth. It lingers. And maybe that's why moments between them since then feel charged, heavy with meaning. Fans recall a particular interview where Yibo was asked about what motivates him, what keeps him pushing forward through exhaustion. His answer was brief, almost evasive: "Some things, you just don't say. You keep them in your heart." At the time, it was brushed off as his usual reserved nature. But now, with the knowledge of the hidden letter, those words feel like an echo. Like a confession spoken in disguise. The tragedy is in the restraint. Yibo, the man who faces roaring crowds and high-speed tracks without fear, could not summon the courage to send a single letter. Not because he lacked bravery, but because the risks were too great. In their world, where every word is dissected and every gesture could ignite controversy, the cost of truth was too high. Perhaps he knew that sending it would have meant the end of everything they had on-screen, off-screen, and in the fragile space in between. Still, the letter exists. And that existence alone changes everything. Some speculate that Xiaozhon might already know. Perhaps not the words themselves, but the feeling. Perhaps Yibo's silence spoke louder than any letter could. The way he stood by him, even when others turned away. The way his loyalty never faltered, even in the storm of 2020. Maybe, just maybe, that was Yibo's way of sending the letter without ever delivering it. A living, breathing message written in actions instead of ink. Yet the thought of the letter, still folded, still hidden, gnaws at the imagination. Where is it now? Does Yibo still keep it? Did he burn it in a moment of fear, watching the flames consume his words so no one else could ever see? Or does it remain, quietly waiting, preserved like a time capsule of emotions that could one day resurface? One can't help but imagine a future scene years from now when Yibo, perhaps no longer bound by the same constraints, might finally take out that folded piece of paper and hand it over. Or maybe he'll never deliver it, leaving it forever as the most powerful unsent message of his life. And this is what makes the story of the hidden letter so devastatingly beautiful. It's not just about what was written. It's about what wasn't. It's about the silence, the restraint, the unbearable weight of words locked away. It's about the universal human fear that sometimes the truths we hold closest are the ones we never dare to share. For Wang Yibo, the hidden letter remains both a secret and a scar. A reminder of what he felt but couldn't say, of the bond he cherished but couldn't define, of the courage he almost had but never reached. And that makes it not just a story about him, but about all of us. Because who among us hasn't had words we longed to say but never could? In the end, the letter still breathes. Not in public view, not in tabloids, not in interviews. But in the imagination of everyone who now knows it exists. In every fan who sees a lingering glance or a subtle silence and wonders if it's connected to those hidden words. The letter lives on as a ghost of love, loyalty, and longing. The paper may remain folded. The ink may never touch its intended eyes. But the truth within it, the truth Yibo dared to write but not send, will never disappear. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more dramatic and exclusive stories about your favorite stars. Your support keeps these stories alive.